I want to talk about the Leica Q3.
Hello, my name is Chris, and welcome to my channel. It must be the end of the year because I'm wearing an ugly sweater. And that means I've had my Leica Q3 for an entire year. This review is not going to be a technical review. I am not going to get into the details of the specs. I'm going to get into what it's like to own my very first Leica, what it's like to own the Leica Q3, and what it's like to carry this with me every day. So if you're ready, let's get into it. So if you missed my first impressions video, a quick backstory. At the end of 2024, I had some money coming to me from my company for a bonus, and I was turning 50. But for all the reasons that I allowed myself to buy the Q3, the number one reason, I had just completed a 365-day project. I think one of the fears when you first buy a Leica is that it'll be sitting on your shelf or desk or coffee table and just be like this constant reminder of how much money you spent on it. I think any rational person would think that way. One of the things I want to talk about is the very early stages of owning your very first Leica. When you first purchase a Leica, I think you go through something I'm calling the Leica fear stage. You know, this is not a small purchase. This is a major financial decision, no matter how you shake it. Even if you have a successful photography business, choosing the Leica line is still a major financial decision. So I'm not going to pretend that it's not. But in this Leica fear stage, you make this decision and then you go out with the camera. And the truth be told, what happened to me, I was not blown away by the photos. And the Leica fear stage means you are hypersensitive to the return window. And you are going to be super critical of the camera while you're in this return window. The other thing is when you're in the return window, you're sort of half in, half out with the camera. You're not giving the camera your full attention. You think things like, I could be doing this with my Fujifilm, exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm walking around, I'm taking photos. It does not require this camera. I know it. Everybody knows it. I'm a sucker. What am I doing? I think a lot of the reviews that you see online are people who had the camera for a moment. They had an M, they had an SL, they had a Q, and they say, you know what? It wasn't for me. It didn't do X, Y, Z. But fortunately, in this Leica fear stage, if you do persist, if you do continue, Leica will show you what it has up its sleeve. I went out on a cold January morning. It was actually during something they were referring to as the polar vortex. It was the kind of cold where you walk outside and your face freezes. Like, it was brutal. It was so cold. And I took a photo of a tree and there's a structure, and I didn't really think much of it. I got home, and all I did was pull back slightly on the light, and I think I pulled contrast up a little, and I was just floored with what I saw. I mean, the reason the photo really stands out to me, and this was in my first impressions video too, is it just has this incredible sharpness where you need the focus to be. But outside of that focus area, the way the light and everything just falls off so gracefully. God, it's so hard to describe the feeling you get when you start working with these Leica files. There's so much depth to these images. So I went back through the images I had been taking up to this point, and I was able to mimic what I had done with this image. And I started to see that there was more in the photos that I had taken previously. Once this happened, I knew this was my camera. I wasn't going to return it. And then once you do that, then you're in. You're on your journey with the Leica. And that is, I think, where everything got really fun for me. Now, another thing I want to touch on here is I am a strong proponent of the fixed lens system. I have a video from a couple of years ago that I did on the Fujifilm X100V. I never really took the exposure triangle seriously. You know, if the camera was going to do some of the work for me, I would allow that to happen. The idea that I didn't know why the camera was making the choices it was making was bothersome to me. So on the X100V, I would go out and I would take photos, but they were always too bright. They were always too bright, even for the scene I was in. You know, I would be standing in a scene that was actually pretty dark and the Fujifilm files would be too bright. And that's when I really started to take control of my camera. And because of that fixed lens, because I wasn't worried about the focal length, I could worry about the composition. I could worry about the light. And I think that made me a better photographer. The Leica Q3 carries on that line. And it's amazing to me what this 28mm 1.7 Summilux lens is capable of. I was not prepared for how versatile it is. I was thinking street photography all day. And if you listen to other YouTubers, you'll hear things like dad cam or travel camera. All of that is really missing. This is a powerful photography tool. This summer, I found myself, I was out in a very stormy weather. I actually did another video about this, about chasing storms, chasing a look over the summer. And I had my Leica Q3 with me and I took a photo. And this photo just sort of set the tone for the rest of the summer. I started chasing this photo. I started chasing these storms, looking for a specific photo. I was looking for a mood more than anything else. When I would go out, I would bring my Lumix camera with me with 3 different zooms, a 16-35, a 24-70, and a 28-200. And in my mind, that covered the whole base. But what ended up happening was I would take out my Leica Q3 as well because, hey, I have a Leica Q3, I should have it with me. At the time, I would think of it as an establishing shot. I would get back in the car, especially if it was raining. What I would do is look at my Lumix and then choose what focal distance to use and get out and take the shot. But more often than not, the shot that I chose at the end of the day, the shot that I preferred over all the other shots that I took was my Leica Q3. And that shocked me. I just didn't think of this as a landscape photography tool. That wasn't on my bingo card. I had all these other lenses that served this other purpose. And this one camera with this one amazing lens. So this is all coming from a single fixed lens camera with a 16 megapixel sensor. It's like a utility knife in your bag. It wasn't supposed to be this way. It was supposed to be a Fujifilm X100V, a camera that you walk around with. You can take photos in the streets. You know, it's relatively small compared to other cameras. It's relatively lightweight compared to other cameras. I think that's the biggest thing for me was I just couldn't believe the kind of photography I could get from it. And I really stretched myself this year. I really pushed the limits of what I thought this could do, and it just kept delivering. If that isn't a ringing endorsement, I don't know what is. I still find myself shocked by the photos I get out of the camera. Like, it's been a year. You'd think by now that I would have dulled that sense a little, but here I am, end of the year. I still can't believe some of the photos that I get out of this camera. The word that keeps coming to my mind is quality. This is such a high quality device that I really can't get over how I feel about it. It's not just the image quality I get out of here, which is fantastic. It's not just the light and the color, which is fantastic. It's not the build quality, which is fantastic. It's the entirety of the camera. This whole thing is one quality experience. I love using this. The way it feels in my hand, the way my accessories help it. One of the very first accessories that I got for this was this Ona leather bag. I had been looking for a bag of similar quality, right? I wanted a high quality bag that I could wear with my high quality camera. The other thing that I like is this not OEM thumb grip. You know, I've had this on the camera pretty much since I bought the camera, and it even has the Leica camera made in Wetzlar engraved in it, which I still can't believe. It feels like an OEM part that maybe somebody's just selling at a really discounted rate, but regardless, it's available and it's much, much less expensive. I still have this red shutter button screwed in. I've had this since my Fujifilm X-T5. It still looks great. It hasn't chipped. It's still a really nice accessory. I love, you know, how my finger rests on it. And then I've got this Helium Design Labs grip, which is such a beautiful, well-crafted grip. When I want to, you know, go downtown or anywhere where I might either lose the camera or have the camera taken from me, it has an air tag in it, and you can't just unscrew it. You need a special key that came with it. That gives me a little peace of mind. The other thing is this is Arca Swiss compatible. So I will put this on my tripod when I'm out and about and I want to do a, you know, long exposure or something like that. Yes, there are less expensive options, but I like the people who are behind the Helium grip, and I just want to support them. There are a few things that bug me about the Q3, and the first one is this door on the side. It feels so flimsy. It's easily the flimsiest thing on the entire camera. It's so flimsy, and you have to open it up to plug in a USB-C. I don't like how flimsy that door feels, and I feel like if a part is going to break, it's going to be this one. I'm going to talk about the EVF here, but I don't think it's a problem. I'm only going to put it here in the drawbacks section because so many people complain about it. I simply don't understand what people are doing in their EVF that they require so many millions of dots. I am a rabid EVF fan. I love EVFs because I could hold my camera to my face, which I like doing. You have to understand, this is just how I prefer to shoot. If I didn't mind shooting with a screen, I would shoot more with my iPhone. But I don't like shooting with the screen. I like to hold the camera to my face. And I look through the EVF. I use manual focus on this all the time. I love manual focus on this lens. I think it's smooth and nice to use, so it's very nice to frame up my shots and shoot. I use this EVF to do that. So I just don't understand this thing with EVFs. I am going to get off that soapbox. Another drawback that I simply must admit, I think this is a gateway drug. I think it's so hard to have this 28mm lens and constantly be blown away by it and not wonder what else is out there. Some of my favorite photographers used Leica, and they had their favorite Leica lens, you know, the 35mm or a 90mm. You look at their photos and you think about the way they practice their art. You look in the photo book and you think to yourself, what am I missing? So while I'm not necessarily ready to talk about it, I do believe that I am moving into the Leica ecosystem, and it's because my experience with this has been overwhelmingly positive. The Leica Q3 really embodies sort of how I feel about photography and photography gear. I really want the camera to feel like it's something that is calling for me to pick it up. You know, some cameras, like my Lumix cameras, they do everything really well. They are functionally correct in so many ways. But I don't necessarily want to pick up my Lumix camera and go take photos with it. Where a camera like this or my Fujifilm X100V, those cameras, like, they sit there on the counter and you just look at them and you go, I want to go take a photo. They like draw you to them. And that's what this does to me. I want to take photos with it. Now, whether or not this is the right camera for you, I'm not here to say. I'm not even here to convince you that you should get one. It hasn't been a great year, but, you know, I'm thankful for everything I have. I'm thankful that I have this channel. I'm thankful that you're watching, and I hope that you enjoyed this. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up. That always helps. And if you like, you can subscribe. I am going to be talking about how I set up my Leica, especially with the new Leica 4.0 software. I really am glad they upgraded it because I got a little taste of that software in another Leica, which I'll talk about in another time. And as always, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye.